my partner was quite supportive, but we're not all as lucky. And I just don't think that we can say that all men, in all circumstances, must be there, because it can be a risk. There are unintended consequences.
Ben, what would you have done if someone had said you can't be around?
I think I'd have kicked the door down myself. I think it's so important that dads are there. You know, I think for me, just the early bonding experience with a child, I think is so important. I can't imagine not have been there for the birth of my 3 children. And I just think that, you know, every labour is different. You know, there are things that happen in the run-up to a labour. Sometimes you need to be there as support for your partner, your wife. And I think that's just really important. I think I was quite surprised, to be honest, that this was even a topic that, you know, dads shouldn't be present.
What they're finding, though, Ben, is that the midwives are finding that the men are getting in the way. They're causing problems, treating the place like a bit of a hotel, making other mums feel uncomfortable because of their presence as well. And actually, if there was a more structured way of doing it, and a way of doing it so, I know, you could be there for the birth, but then you don't stay, you don't hang around, you're not there all the time, maybe that would help everybody else on the ward.
But then don't you think that there's a bit of a problem there where, as I say, every labour is different, so there's no sort of fixed rules in terms of the child's going to be born, you know, everything goes plain sailing, and then, you know, the dad can just go off and do something else. I think there's just so many different variables with it that it's really hard to sort of do that. I've heard people say about, you know, dads kind of getting in the way, but again, and I can only draw on my own personal experience and those of friends that I've spoken to, our focus and my focus was on my wife. You know, I didn't really care about what else was going on in the room. Everything was just about making sure that she was catered for and looked after.
I think the only difference is that not everybody's as lucky to have a partner like you, and you've got 1 in 3 maternity doctors are actually stressed out, like being burnt out. And the most important thing is the safety for the mother and the baby. And in some cases, there was some research that showed that 1/3 of mothers were actually spwhile they're in labour, were spending most of their time worried about their partner. So, you know, in an ideal situation, yes, but there are quite a few circumstances where making sure that the mother and the baby are being looked after is more important. And then you obviously have all the celebrity angles of nobody would not forgive women for throwing out their partners if they're, let's say, filming or live tweeting the birth, as we saw with Robbie Williams. So, you know, there are some circumstances where...
But then, look, Keely has got
hold on. In Robbie's defence, I mean, Robbie's just trying to lighten the mood. He's trying to take his lovely wife's mind off the situation. He's trying to be Robbie and make her remember why she loved him.
And also, let's not forget that Robbie is a singer. Music is a big part of their life. And so for them as you know, individuals, that was probably normal.
I think he's happy. He's enjoying the dancing. Yeah. He's enjoying the singing. We're talking about what about his wife, though, and then having that camera in her face while she's going through that. I don't know. I wouldn't argue with her if she wanted to throw him out.
She's pretty tough, though. I'm sure she would. I'm sure she would handle herself. She knows. I think he's under the thumb as well. Gemma, listen. The other problem is that actually for some people on a busy ward, having their partner there, somebody who's also seriously invested in the baby that's about to be born, is vital. Like Keely says, my husband sat quietly in the chair, went to the canteen for meals, and when I asked him to go find someone for me, he was right there for me. Having him there was extremely comforting. You can't punish every dad for others being idiots.
OK, so I totally agree you can't punish every dad for some being idiots, but the problem that we heard about these hospitals is you also can't force every man to be there. And what's happened was some partners are treating a hospital like a hotel, and the staff are being told they can't ask them to leave. And so so I think both ways it can be quite disruptive. And also about men being there and supportive, that's fantastic. But again, there was some research that showed that about half of men feel unprepared. And what I would say is, rather than forcing unprepared men to be there, why don't we make sure that actually both partners are adequately supported?
Is that true? Do you think there's some men that would feel guilty? They actually don't want to be part of the process because they're anxious about it and don't want to be in the way, but feel like they're letting their partner down if they're not there.
I feel as though, as new dads, you sometimes do go into that situation a little bit unprepared. I don't think anything can prepare you for the wonder of what happens in the room. But by being in the room and by being present, the moment... There's so many dads that I've spoken to that we've all sort of said that the moment that you see your child being born, it's just like something clicks, everything falls into place. And so I think missing out on that early opportunity, I think long term could possibly have sort of more detrimental effects. You know, the fact that maybe someone hasn't had the opportunity to bond as well with the child. And I know that the NHS is stretched, and you know, I think we sort of see that, but again, probably another reason there, that if we're saying that the dads aren't going to be there, are we saying that responsibility would just fall down to midwives to look after the child? And
well, Sarah's works in the NHS. She said, what does it hurt to give a hot drink and a sandwich? I work in the NHS. The amount of food waste is ridiculous. Put it to some use. Give it to the people that are there long term and they can't get away.
Yeah, and I mean, I put it out on my Instagram last night about this topic, and, you know, loads of differing opinions. I had people messaging me telling me that, you know, their husband had to hide underneath the bed so that they didn't realise that he was still there. And I thought, what a crazy sort of just extreme. All he wanted to do was be there as a support for his wife. I know there are some hospitals that, you know, the waiting hours, or the visiting hours mean that the dad has to go home. You know, it could be a couple of hours after the child's been born. Seems very, very strange to me.
And it can be quite tricky. And I experienced this when my first child, that actually on the ward there were some people who, for religious reasons, didn't feel comfortable having men around, and you have to be very sensitive to that. And it's part of the problem that we haven't got the facility in the NHS for people to have individual space and rooms.
And that's also the problem, is that we have to protect the NHS, and there are so many rooms that are overcrowded. There were reports that people couldn't reach the emergency buzzer.
Right.
But as you said, it was impacting other patients and potentially stopping them, protecting people against the spread of infection as well. So, you know, there are all these unintended consequences.